Alright, here we go with another Space Marine tutorial looking at white scars this time. So I started off with a Althen Gray paint, and I'm going to give it an Agrax Earthshade wash. So if you were doing this probably more carefully, you might not do all the flat surfaces, because it just makes it longer when you have to paint over it again. But so yeah, just give it a good wash with the Agrax Earthshade, and that'll just give you nice brown shades in all the crevices there. So now I'm going back with the gray, and I'm going to paint over all the flat surfaces. Obviously the wash has dried since then, and I'm trying to make this as even as possible, which might take two thin coats depending on how you like to paint. So this is probably one of the longer stages in this whole process. Similar problem if you're painting Imperial Fists, because the yellows and grays work in a very similar fashion. So yeah, I'm painting up all of the flat surfaces and avoiding all of the crevices. I can go back and touch those up a little bit, which I do off camera a little bit later, but I'm going around and just trying to paint everything minus the shades. So if you're doing this in two layers, what you can do is you can actually feather it out a bit from the edges. So you paint one layer a little bit closer and then the other one a little bit further out. And if they're semi-transparent, then you'll end up with a bit more of a gradient there. Okay, so working on the head. Probably going to cut off camera shortly. Okay, so lead belcher for all of these silver bits, which is basically the bolt gun and the backpack on this guy, the clip and the barrel and some of the details like that. So off camera I would have touched up a couple things and finished up the backpack with the gray there, but it was getting a bit long for that clip. Okay, Baden Black going on the bolt gun as well as some of the hoses. I didn't bother doing the backs of his knees, but on his backpack and his helmet and the area there on the bolt gun. And I'm doing that before I do the gold because that little gold detail will have to be painted over top, and if I did that first then it's likely that I would get the black on it and mess it all up. Okay, Mephiston Red, and that's going to be for a couple little details, basically Imperial Eagle and this bolt gun holster. I'm not really doing many squad markings on this guy. If you're doing a knee pad, you might do that. I'm going to put decals on, and I'll show you how to do that later. Okay, Balthasar Gold, and that's going to be the skull on his head, that thing on the eagle on the gun, and that's it. Okay, Newland Oil, I'm going to wash the silver bits, and if I had been thinking a bit better I might have done the black highlight first and then done the wash over top, but sometimes I like to do that because it helps blend the blacks a bit better. Okay, I'll let that dry. Again, as gold for the gold highlights, and it really doesn't do a lot. Okay, so now Crimson, Coborg Crimson for the red areas, and I get a bit messy on the chest there. Okay, so I'm putting a gloss varnish, which would be the same as the Citadel, which one is it? Hard coat, and I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm putting on the decals. So I'm using micro set there. You can get that at your hobby shops. You put that on first, then you just slide your decal on, which you've already pre-wetted with water, and just position it. I had a little bit of a hard time positioning it there. You want to cut the decal as close to the thing as possible, so cutting off the edges, so that way it'll conform to the round shoulder pad better. So you want to get as much of the clear stuff away, and then the micro set, microsol, goes on over top, and it'll help it conform to the shape. Okay, now I'm moving on to some of the red highlights, and you'll see I mess up a little bit there, and I'll paint over those. Squig orange for the highlight there, and not worried too much about the chest, you're not really seeing it. Okay, so gray, Mechanicus standard gray for the black highlights, and there's a couple pieces here I touch up on the hoses that I got some red on. Runefang steel, just highlight up the silver bits, just some edges there to catch the light, and brighten it back up a bit. And finally, some white highlights. So these are just little bits of white. So while the model looks almost white, there's very little pure white on it. So I'm just doing it at the tops of the knee pads there, some of the bottoms of the shin pads, tops of the shoulder pads, the backpack, the helmet, that sort of thing. Just trying to keep it pretty minimal, so you can actually tell that it's highlighted, not that the whole thing is white. And of course it doesn't really show up great on the camera, but in person it looks a bit better, trust me. Alright, so now we just see the finished guy here. I just painted the base black to cover up some of the mistakes, and you can see there with the shoulder pads look pretty decent. And yeah, so this is how you get to tabletop quality. Check out my other videos and my blog, and I'll see you next time.